Well, this is the Muppet equivalent of being in mourning, y'all. So, in 1955, a young puppeteer by the name of Jim Henson developed a puppet that would eventually become Kermit the Frog. He performed this character for many, many years, and to this day, Kermit is still arguably the most famous frog in the entire world. In 1978, when Jim Henson was developing The Muppet Show, he ended up taking in a puppeteer by the name of Steve Whitmire. Steve Whitmire had a huge passion for puppets, and especially for Jim Henson's work, and Jim Henson was Steve's hero, so to get a chance to work with his hero, I can only imagine just how life-changing that was for him. He was, for a very long time, one of the main performers of the Muppets. He even developed some of his own characters, such as Rizzo the Rat and Bean Bunny, and from there, he ended up working on a lot of projects with Jim Henson, including The Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, and, of course, Fraggle Rock. But unfortunately, and very unexpectedly, Jim Henson passed away on May 16, 1990, and he left behind a great legacy. Of course, there was a lot of questions going around as to who was going to perform Kermit from here on out. Well, actually, Jim Henson's son Brian asked Steve to take on that role. And from what I understand, Steve was very understandably hesitant to do it because this was a huge responsibility. This was taking on a character who was so loved by millions and was performed by his friend, his colleague, his hero. And also, from what I understand, he apparently got a Kermit puppet to start working with, but he ended up putting that puppet away for about a month because it was just so overwhelming for him. But eventually he came through and he became the next big performer of Kermit. And I believe the very first big project he did was The Muppet Christmas Carol, which is, of course, my personal favorite Muppet film. And he carried on doing this character for a lot of years. And I don't think there's any doubt that this was Steve's character. Despite the fact that he had other characters he did, this was the main one. This is the one that, when we think Steve Whitmire, we now think Kermit. And since I grew up in the 90s, I heavily grew up on Steve's Kermit. I watched specials, I of course watched the movies in the 90s, and I also grew up on a lot of Jim Henson, but for a long time, I don't think I was aware that the Jim Henson Kermit and the Steve Whitmire Kermit were different. And of course, now if you listen to them really closely, you can tell a difference, but as a young child, I didn't know the difference. I thought it was all the same character. And one of the many things that I love about Steve doing Kermit over the years is that he was able to do experiments with the puppet that I don't think even Jim had the chance to do. He was able to make the lips move in a certain way or make the face scrunch in a different way. And even though, of course, Jim is a fantastic puppeteer and there really is no comparing the two, I love that Steve just had all these nice little touches that just made his own performance so unique and different. But I think what I've always admired about Steve's performance of Kermit is that there is just something so true about it. You can tell that he just absolutely believes that this character is alive, just as Jim did. And I think that despite whatever thoughts you may have as to whether he was living up to the vision of Jim, I still think that he really did respect his work, and he wanted to do right by him. He really does just have this, I don't even know how to describe it, but he has great chemistry with the characters that he performs with. And I really do think that doing Kermit, on some level, I don't know the whole story of where he's coming from, obviously, because I'm not Steve, but I do feel like on some level, his character comes from a place of love. Comes from a place of just watching Jim over the years and seeing what Kermit does for people. The reason, of course, that we're talking about this today is that a week ago, we got the news that Disney, who now owns the Muppets, has decided to part ways with Steve. And they decided that Steve is not going to perform Kermit or any of the other characters anymore, from my understanding. Apparently, this has been in effect since last October, but we're just now getting the big news of it. I actually found out this news a couple weeks ago from a friend I'm not going to name, and I was honestly shocked at first. And at first it sounded like it was just a rumor. It sounded like it went along the lines with how he wasn't doing Sesame Street anymore because he was focusing more on doing the Muppets. So I thought maybe there was a bit of a mix-up with all of that. And I processed it, and I didn't want it to be true, but I also kind of let it sink in, and I thought to myself, well, if it is true, that sucks. And the reason it sucks is, even though I don't know the full story, they haven't even really revealed that much information as to why they parted ways. There's some speculation, there's some, news from Disney, but there isn't like any actual clear reasons why. But again, the reason this sucks is because I really do feel like that Steve had this responsibility to take on Kermit, and it meant the world to him to be able to do right by Jim Henson. And Steve Whitmire has actually opened a blog recently, and I'll include the link right here and down in the description if you want to see the post that he's made about the subject, but he has expressed that this has devastated him. And I don't blame him, because he's been doing this character for 27 years. I think he feels like he's failed Jim. And I know this because that's what he said, but that has just, I can't even imagine a feeling like that, because of course I've had feelings of letting people down in my life, but nothing to that extreme. And I'm sad that he doesn't have anything to do with Kermit anymore. And if he were to do Kermit again, actually, to be honest, I would be so happy, because I really do admire his performance of Kermit. But there's also a part of me, after working in Hollywood for numerous years, that says, well, I don't want to sound heartless by saying this, but there's a part of me that also says, you know what, life kind of goes on. And there are a lot of other things in the world that we need to be worrying about. This is one small thing. Of course, it means a lot to people, but worse things could happen. Regardless of what may or may not have happened between Steve and Disney, I still have great respect for both sides. I love Disney. Disney has given me a lot of joy over the years. And I also love Steve's work. And if this is how it has to be, then that's how it is. And from what I understand, Muppet performer Matt Vogel is now going to be taking over that role, which is ironic because he did Constantine, the doppelganger of Kermit in the Muppets Most Wanted film, but now he's apparently going to do Kermit as well. And honestly, when I heard that news about how he's going to be doing this character from here on out, what went through my mind was, well, Matt has carried the torch for a lot of other characters over the years, so why not Kermit? If this is how it's going to be, then yes, pun intended, I do think that Kermit will be in good hands. Matt is a wonderful performer. He's so talented. He has also been my mentor at Sesame Street doing workshops, and he just knows technique. He knows characters. He just, everything that you could possibly want to know about puppetry, I'm sure he'd have an answer for. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but what I guess I'm trying to say is I trust Matt with this responsibility. And I say that, I don't say that lightly. Taking on the role of Kermit is not a task. It's not a job. It's a responsibility. Because this character means so much to so many people, whether they know it or not. I am just a huge Muppet fan. I have other friends who are Muppet fans, but he is, like I said, the most famous frog in the world. And whether he had a little influence on you in your life or a big influence, he's still had a huge impact on a lot of people. And whether or not Steve is going to be involved in that anymore, I just really hope that Kermit will continue to be a big influence in people's lives, and I think that Matt Vogel is a good choice to do that. Steve, if you're watching this, I just hope you know that you doing Kermit over all these years has meant a lot to me, and it's meant a lot to a lot of people, if you didn't already know that. You hold such a big place in our hearts, and I'm grateful that you had the time to do this character. And I won't lie, there's a part of me that hopes that you will continue to do this character at some point down the road. Whether it's in a big way or in a little way, I don't know, but I hope that you might get that chance again. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for this character. Thank you for facing your fears in the beginning and just pulling through and doing everything that you felt was right on your end as far as making sure that this character lived on. I don't know, by the way, if you would remember me, but we have met a few times, and just know that you have made a very enthusiastic and humble fan very happy because just getting to just meet you and talk with you and getting to see how passionate you are for this character in person meant the world to me. And I hope, that down the road maybe we will meet again, and maybe I'll get the chance to say thank you in person. So with all that said, everyone, some of you might be angry, some of you might be indifferent, and wherever you stand on this, I just want to remind you that if Jim Henson were alive today, I think that he would want us to listen to each other. He would want us to talk. He would want us to not act out of anger. So please just try to remember that. And with that, I'm going to leave you with one of his most famous quotes. Please watch out for each other. Love and forgive everybody. It's a good life. Enjoy it. And again, if you'd like to read a little bit more about this, then you can check out Steve's blog, and also I'll include a couple more links in the description about all of this. Thank you, Kermit, and thank you, Steve, for everything that you've given us over these years. And I hope this isn't the end. Thank you. And if you have any thoughts, then please leave some comments down below, and remember, it's a conversation, it's not one-sided. Thank you, Adorkable Buddies, for watching, and I'll see you really soon.